In this tutorial I will teach you how to use CSS to control the appearance of your web page. We've already created a template which we will modify for this purpose, so please make a copy of it. First of all though, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. The idea behind this is simple. It specifies the font's colours, spacing and various other formatting elements to create a website style. The great thing about CSS is that once you've created it, you can apply it to other web pages, allowing you to create an overall consistency for your website. CSS has a massive range of formatting options. In this tutorial we will cover what you need to get started with using this technology. The first thing I should point out is that CSS can be employed directly in web pages source codes, or as a separate file which is loaded from the main loaded separately from the main HTML file, so that any web pages you create will inherit these settings when in this format. So in this tutorial I'm going to be using the separate file method for the reason I just stated, which is it's going to be very easy to import the settings into any web page you create with just a simple line, and it will avoid repeating code. Once it's created, you'll be able to load it onto any web page with ease. In the same way as HTML files, which end in a .html extension, CSS is typically ended with CSS. So if we have a quick look at our folder here, you'll notice we've got index.html and styles.css. So this is the Cascade Sheet style, or well, it's a CSS file, and that's the HTML file. From tutorial 2 we created a template file. This is what we're going to be modifying, so it's a good idea to copy that into there, and we'll start editing it with some new data and try and create a web page. So what we're going to do now is open up our example. So I've created two. This is the finished version and this is the one we're going to start out with. So I'm just going to pop open Notepad. I'm going to drag it in there and we'll see the source code we're using. Now let's go through the source code here. You're already familiar with the template I've created, so if you have a look at HTML, the second file. So this is the template we created, and this is the template with the extra data. You'll notice that they are exactly the same. The only difference is I've put a lot of extra stuff in the main body of the text. Now what I'm going to be doing for this tutorial is create a quick web page relating to my book's release. So I'm going to need a title, I'm going to need a picture of the book's cover, I'm going to need the author's name, I'm going to need a link to the purchase of the book, and I'm going to need some random review quotations to help try and sell it. So it's a good idea to plan out what you actually want to do before you start sitting in front of the word processor. So rather than sit here and just type everything out at you and have you follow along on the screen as I usually would with my other programming tutorials, you'll notice the lines are quite long, so it's difficult to display them on the screen at the same time. So what I've basically done is zip up the program or the project tutorial files, HTML1, HTML2 and HTML3 folders, and I've uploaded them to my site. So if you go to www.dcforeman.co.uk, click on the Flash or the standard HTML, doesn't matter. I prefer the Flash because it's a bit prettier. So you've got my website here. All you need to do is click on the pen drive icon, and that will bring up a mock pen drive folder. There we go. So I just needed to refresh that page, and you'll see the HTML, XHTML, CSS introduction.zip. You need to download that file just by clicking on it. and once you got it, just open up the folder and extract the content to your desktop. The original template file is there. This will be useful for anyone who doesn't want to type in all the boilerplate code, just wants to start working on the body of the text quickly. And then of course got HTML3, which is the examples I'm working with now. So before we continue with anything else, let's actually have a look at the example HTML file in action. So we're just going to load that up. So we've got a massive graphic at the top of the page to start off with, which is highly unattractive. That's going to be very messy for anyone trying to look at the web page. You've got the title there, which is messed up. We've got by Daniel Charles Foreman, which is the author name. We've got synopsis, and we've got everything's just really jumbled up and quite messy and quite unattractive. If we have a look at the HTML version, sorry, the index.html file with the CSS styles applied, you'll notice that the file is a lot cleaner. So this is exactly the same source code. If we have a look at both of these side by side, so we have a look at the example and the index. There's only one line difference, which actually links to the CSS sheet, which we'll go into later. But other than that, as you can see, the files are identical in all other respects. So we'll just close these and we'll focus on the example for now. And I'll just quickly run through the code and tags so you know exactly what's going on and what I've done. So you know from my previous tutorial what title does. We can change this because I forgot to do that. We can change that to Blood and Silence book site, and we just save that quickly. And if we do an F5, sorry, if we just open up the example.html, you'll notice that the title has changed there. So that's what that line does. All the heading stuff, that's all the stuff that's invisible. I explained that in the previous tutorial, so if you're not sure what I'm talking about, please go back and view that one. The first one is the body section here. This is the main body of the actual text. We got heading 1, then we got an image with source. Now this is a line you won't have seen before. Basically it provides alternative text, so if this file fails to load for whatever reason, it will just display image failed to load, please refresh. And we also have the text that wants to be displayed, which is Blood and Silence. So again, if we split screen this and open up the example, you'll see the order in which things are appearing. So you've got the image first, which is exactly what's stated. It's between the H1 and closing tags for H1. And in between them we've also got the image source. Now the reason I've done this is because I want this image in the final version to be aligned with the top of my my title. So that will basically allow this to coexist side by side by my title and go up and down the page depending on how many lines or whatever I put before it. So it's quite good for organization. And then of course you've got the actual text itself, which you should be quite familiar with the method by now. We've got heading 2, synopsis or synopsis. Then we've got a paragraph. Nice long paragraph, nothing particularly special about that. It just ends in a closed tag. And we've got another paragraph down here. Then we've got another heading, Buy It Today. Then we've got a new paragraph and a href or a web link. So we've got the hypertext reference there, and we've got the actual text we want displayed on the screen. I can get rid of that extra space there. I don't need that. And we end the anchor with a closed tag, and we end the paragraph with a closed tag. So A is for anchor, by the way. So all we're doing is anchoring the H reference there. Again, we've got another heading 2 style text with viewers viewers comments. Then we've got a paragraph. Now this paragraph tag is a little bit different. You'll notice I've put class equals comments. Now what this is actually doing is picking up the settings from the CSS file, which we'll be showing you later on, and applying additional formatting options to these particular lines. We've got br/, that's basically ending the line, so that's going down a line 3 times, so we've got a nice list rather than having separated paragraphs, which I don't want. I just wanted a list. We've got div class. This is basically creating a footer at the bottom of the page and announcing the copyright and ownership of the website. So copyright at copy, this creates, if I scroll down, this creates this symbol here. So by typing in the and sign and copy, we've basically got, the and sign and copy and a semicolon, and we basically get this nice copyright symbol there. And we got 2010 to 2011 Daniel Charles Form and all rights reserved, so quite standard. And then we just end the div statement there. And that's basically it. So that is the source code. We've got some references to the CSS file, and which I haven't actually called, and I'm now going to show you how to actually call that file and apply all the formatting to this code. So if we get rid of that, save that, get rid of that, we'll open up a CSS3 file. Now we're going to look at the index file. This is the finished version. Whoops. And we're going to drag that in there so we can have a look at it. We're going to have another look at the document again. It doesn't look too good scrunched up, but there we go. Obviously this is intended to look at full screen like that. And again, we'll have a look. So you'll notice that what I said before, it's more or less in line with Blood and Silence. It's about halfway down the font. But by announcing it in the H1 tag, we're basically putting it in line with that particular line, so it doesn't matter what happens after it, that image there will always be in the same place. Now it's worth noting that the image I'm using here is exactly the same image I used in the previous version. You notice it's smaller. What I've basically done is reduce the size by using code in the CSS file, and of course you've got everything else. So anyway, we can agree that it's a much more attractive looking web page. So let's actually have a look at the CSS file and see how it relates to the main HTML file. So we'll just put this on this side. So you've got the HTML on this side and you've got the style sheet on this side. And I will go through the code with you. So we're starting off by defining the body of the text. So these tags here mark the body of the text, and we're setting the options for that. So we're setting the text size to 12 points. We're setting up some web safe fonts. These 4 fonts are web safe, so you can put them on any system, and one of these fonts will be on the system, and this aids the page in displaying consistently and properly. We set the color as black, so all the text here is black as it should be. We've got some padding, so you'll notice there's some margins around left and right and around everything, so we've got some padding around it, so it's not just going right the way up to the margin there, or right the way up to the edge, so it looks a little bit better and a little bit more professional. So padding left, padding right and padding top. Now the next one here is setting up the details for the heading 1 setting. So if we go there, we've got heading 1 and we set it up as 32 points, and that's the size, and we set up these 4 web safe fonts again. We've set the weight to bold, and we've set inline to 10 points. Now you can look up these commands at any time for more specific help simply by going to Google, taking one of these commands and typing in CSS inline, and it will come up on the W3 schools, it will show you all the details and all specific information on each individual command. So I've spent quite a lot of time on this particular website. It's incredibly useful. So that's basically the setting for H1 setup. Now, just to give you an example, we go back to our page here. Now, if we adjust this setting to 12 and save the file, do an F5, you'll notice that the font is automatically changed. So this demonstrates that it is actually in full control. Save that again, and it makes the font larger. Now we're going down the page in the source code. So we've set that up. Now we set up our P class. I actually didn't mention this before, I should have. Now P class equals author is relating directly to p.author there. I really should put them in the same order as the HTML. Oh no, it is more or less in the same order. Yeah, that's right. So we've got it, heading 1 image, then we got p author. So all we're doing here is we're setting up this particular paragraph to these settings. So anytime you want to adjust a particular paragraph settings, you need to label it with class equals open quote author or whatever name you choose and close quote. And we set the font size here to 16, and we set the font weight to bold. So again, if we have a look there, what we've basically done is just created that nice big line there. Again, if we adjust the settings, if we reduce that size down to 12 and do an F5, you'll notice that the font size has changed. And you can apply various different settings like cutters and things, but all I wanted was a nice big bold by Daniel Charles Foreman, and that was it. So you can put in additional lines there, you're not limited to this at all. Then we go down to the first heading 2. Now we've got heading 2 there. This controls the properties for all heading 2s, not a particular one. So unlike the paragraph, this particular paragraph is the only one that's going to be affected by a .author, because that's the class I've assigned it as. All the rest of the P's here are basically just going to abide by the body settings right there. So again, we've gone down to H2 and we've set up the settings there. So we got font, we got line height, we got line weight, and again you can look up these individual commands for specific information quite easily. So all we've done here is we set up the font size again, and we set up the family of fonts, etc, etc. And if we go down there, we've just got some paragraphs that are formatted by the body. We've got another heading which we've already discussed in some detail, and then we're going down to comments. So p.comments. So you'll notice p.comments there and p.author there. Despite them both being paragraphs, because I've assigned that to comments and that to author, we've got a different set of rules and settings to apply to it. And as I say, you can adjust them in different ways. So we've got the font style here. So instead of bold, we've got italic. Then we've got the font size is 10 because I wanted it smaller than everything else, and we've got a color. So color, and this is a hexadecimal code. So this is a nice dark grey color. So it's obviously grey. It's not easily black, misidentified as black, and you basically get these colors down here. So as you can see, as applied by the rules here, we set up the font style to italics. We've set up the font size to 10, you'll notice it's smaller than everything else, and we've set up the colour, so it's a nice light grey colour. If you're not familiar with hexadecimal codes, again you can go to this website and you can scroll down and you've got CSS colour hex, and you've got a nice list of codes here to reference. So you've got the codes down there, and all you've got to do is copy that code, put it in that line, and you can have any colour you like. So if, for instance, I wanted a nice dark green colour, I can simply replace that, whoops, with that code, and That will save that and do a refresh, and you'll notice that the colors have now changed. So it's that simple to adjust colors. Just like that. So again, if we go down, so we've done the yep, so that was the final one. We've done the comments, and now the final one is the footer. Now div just creates another little area on the site. We already know how the code works, but again, we've assigned it some particular options. So you'll notice again the tag name, just as we did with P. The P class equals comments. We've got div.footer, div class equals footer. So all this is doing is setting up the settings for that particular class and the div setting. And we're basically applying a font size of 8, giving it a font style of italic, inline height of 12. And we've got text aligns to center, and we've got some padding across the top to give a little bit of extra space. So again, if we look down here and we scroll down, we've got a lot more space there than any particular line of code. We've got no BRs or anything like that. We've just set them up in the template in the CSS file to specifically say, give it a nice good padding, we want it separated from the rest of the document. And that's basically how CSS works. Now there are some rules you'll need to understand. You've got the body, which relates to the particular tag. These must be ended with these curly brackets there. So everything must come within that range. If you remove these curly brackets, then the code won't work properly, and all it's doing is marking the beginning of the class and the end of the class and marking all code in between there. So it's just marking the beginning and the end, and that allows you to put all the code on different lines and organize your code properly. And that's basically it. So again, for more formatting options, you've got background, styling, text, fonts. You can have them, you can look them all up here, and you can enter them all in yourself. And you can have a really good study. So if you want to do something like you want to find out how to make the text bold, I've already showed you, but it will show you. Just type in CSS bold into Google search, and it will give you the CSS weight property and the CSS font, and it will give you all the information there. So use this particular website to reference your commands, and you can't go too wrong. And that's basically it. The other thing I didn't tell you, I forgot to, is how to incorporate this style sheet into your actual code. Now, if we open up our two examples here, so example is the one without the CSS, and this is the one with the CSS. Now, the only difference is this particular line of code. Now, the tag is link, rel equals style sheet, type equals text/CSS, href equals styles.css. Now I have validated this code, so it passes 1.1 checks, and it passes CSS 2.1 standards as well. I will show you how to do this in my next tutorial. So you can basically, there's a website interpreter that will, sorry, the website program that will allow us to check our code, validate it, and pick up any errors, and this helps prevent any kind of formatting problems on additional website. So both of these sets of code are validated to XHTML 1.1 standards and CSS 2.1 standards. And again, as I say, I will show you how to do that in my next tutorial. So that's basically how you apply CSS to HTML, or XHTML in this case. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope to see you back for the fourth one.